Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be on episode 317. What you see is what you get. This is also the first episode of Season 7, Advanced Challenge. The episode begins with Ash and the gang coming out of the Mauville City Pokemon Center after Ash healed his Pokemon after the last episode to make sure they were in tip-top shape to continue on, as now he was about to leave Mauville City, fully energized from a good night's rest at the Pokemon Center, ready to go to the destination of his next gym. Ash didn't mention that he wanted to go to the next gym to the rest of the gang, though, as he was too busy looking over Mauville City in awe of all the buildings. Although he was soon back to reality, as Max asked him where they were going next, and Ash confirmed that they were going to the next gym, but admitted that he didn't know what town the next gym was located in, leading Max to sigh in annoyance, hoping that Ash would have known by now. Ash simply looked at his badge case and all the badges inside, including his new Dynamo badge, to try and not think about how embarrassed he was at not knowing the location. Thankfully, May then cuts in and states that she had talked to Nurse Joy at the Pokemon Center before leaving, and she had confirmed that the nearest gym from Mauville City was in a town known as Lawbridge Town. Max didn't believe May, so he checked his Pokénav only to find out that she was right. Therefore, Ash sent the gang's destination to Lawbridge Town, although May cut in again, claiming that Nurse Joy also told her that another Pokemon contest was being held in Fall Arbor City, so she wanted to go there first, leading May and Ash to both argue about where to go first. Max figured that he could end this argument if he looked on his Pokénav and found out if there happened to be a gym in Fall Arbor Town too, because basically they could just go to Fall Arbor Town first, since it had both a gym and a contest hall, and then they could go to the closer Lawbridge Town later. Unfortunately though, Max found out that Fall Arbor Town didn't have a gym. The argument was getting pretty fucking bad between Ash and May now, as Ash really wanted to go to the gym, and May really wanted to go to the contest, so Brock had to break in and stop the argument, trying to explain to them that it didn't really matter what town or city they went to first, as they could just do both eventually. This comment only calmed Ash and May down for a little bit though, as they then started to argue about where they should go first. So Brock cut in again, claiming that they should just go to whichever town was closer. So this led Max to consult his Pokénav again, to see which of the places was closer, only to find out that Fall Arbor Town and Lawbridge Town were both in the same direction, and about the same distance away, being neighboring towns. So this made Max assure everyone that they could just do the towns and cities back to back. Although Brock doubted this, as he thought that Lawbridge Town and Fall Arbor Town had different routes. So he told Max to recheck the Pokénav, and it was then that Max saw that Fall Arbor was actually a bit closer and had a bit of an easier route. Apparently there was like less rocks in the way or some shit. So, upon hearing this, Brock stated that they should all go to the closer Lawbridge first, and although Ash initially protested, yelling that he wanted to go to goddamn Lawbridge, he was eventually convinced after May, Brock, and Max's annoying pleading. So, they decided to head to Fall Arbor Town first, making May even more excited for her next contest, as Ash wishes her luck in her next contest, hoping that she would at least win if they were going to go to Fall Arbor Town first. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was wandering through the woods nearby, trying their best to find Ash and the gang, and complaining how they haven't saw them all day and haven't saw Pikachu all day, and tried to excite themselves from the boredom they were in by discussing a potential plan to capture Pikachu if they did see him. Although they soon realized that from all the walking, they were hungry as fuck as well. So now, not only did they set their eyes on getting Pikachu, they set their eyes on finding some food. Meowth, seeing how Team Rocket was very lazily walking through the forest and had seemingly no energy left, declared that they should find some food first before finding Pikachu, so that they could have energy for finding Pikachu. Thankfully for Team Rocket, they soon came across the edge of a cliff and looked over to find that the entire area below was a field full of watermelons, in addition to special berries called Watmel berries. At first, Team Rocket merely just went down the cliff and stopped at the edge of the field, wondering which of the Watmel berries or watermelon to take, when they eventually decided to just take as many as they possibly could, even if they were stealing them from somebody else, and began to rapidly pick some watermelons and Watmel berries. Just as Team Rocket were about to chow down on all the watermelons though, they all got distracted by this unusually large watermelon. Team Rocket was a little suspicious of it, believing it was weird, so they went up to it slowly, wanting to eat it of course, but cautious about it. Although Jessie really wanted to eat it, claiming that they had no need for puny watermelons with a huge one like that, and she literally tossed the one that she was about to eat right out of her arms, and bolted to the huge watermelon, when suddenly the watermelon started to move and rolled towards them. Jessie became even more excited by this, claiming that this meant that it was destiny that they ate the huge watermelon, and she went up to it even faster with open arms, ready to fucking hug the watermelon with joy before eating it, although the watermelon then stopped inches from her to reveal that it was in control of how it was rolling, because it was a sentient being, making noise and having a face. James and Meowth freaked out as they recognized the face, and Meowth commented that he didn't like food that looked at him. It turned out that this face that James and Meowth recognized was none other than an electrode face, revealing that this watermelon was not a watermelon at all. It was instead an electrode painted to look like a watermelon. Team Rocket panicked in fear, as they knew what Electrode was capable of, though their panicking was soon cut off, as the Electrode then used Rollout, and upon making impact with Team Rocket, exploded, which caused Team Rocket to go blasting off, and also caused them to drop all of the regular-sized watermelons out of their hands, much to their dismay, as all the watermelons ended up in a river and descended down a river. Meanwhile, coincidentally down by this same river, Ash and the gang were on their way to Fall Harbor Town, but had stopped by the river to have some lunch prepared by Brock, being a stew. Ash and the gang complimented Brock on how good his food was, and Brock thanked them, although May and Max, knowing how Brock was a really good cook, wished that he would make something else other than stew, so that they could see what else he was capable of making. Just as Ash and the gang finished eating, though, Max then spotted the same watermelons that Team Rocket had dropped, floating in the river, and Brock was intrigued by this, grabbing one of them, leading the rest of the gang to crowd around Brock, wondering what he was going to do with the watermelon, as he inspected it by lightly tapping it, and because of this, he was somehow able to determine that the watermelons were fresh and safe to eat. And Ash and the gang were very hungry still, even after the stew, so Ash wasted no time grabbing another one of the watermelons from the river and telling Pikachu to iron tail it, to make it easier to eat, and to slice it open. However, May, who was busy retrieving more watermelons from the river, spotted Ash about to do this, and stopped him, taking the watermelon from Ash's hands and giving it to Brock, telling Ash that they actually wanted to fucking eat the watermelons, not rip them to shreds with an iron tail, and told Brock to cut the watermelon with a knife in his backpack, like a civilized person. Max agreed with May's thoughts, thinking that watermelons were far too delicate to risk cutting like that, with an iron tail. Eventually, Brock managed to slice open several watermelons, and Ash and the gang all chowed down, very happy with particularly the sweetness of the watermelons. Suddenly, though, Ash spit out some seeds after almost gagging on them. Upon seeing this, May thought that it was gross and disrespectful to spit out the seeds like that, and told Ash to have better manners. Ash was a bit embarrassed, knowing it was disgusting, though admitted that he wasn't used to eating a whole bunch of shit with seeds, so it was just natural for him to spit seeds out whenever he did. He wasn't even doing it consciously. This meant that Ash was basically forced to keep spitting out the seeds as he ate, and as he did, he remarked how he was kind of using a bullet seed, leading May once again to yell at him for comparing his bad manners to a Pokémon move, but Ash had gotten an idea when thinking of bullet seed and sent out his Trico, after taking a while to find its Pokeball, because he had one hand on the watermelon and one hand looking for the ball. Once out of its Pokeball, Trico landed on the ground and placed its twig in its mouth. Basically, Ash had remembered his encounter with the Shift Tree a few episodes ago that knew Bullet Seed and was able to do quite a bit of damage to Trico, so he wanted to train Trico how to use it. So Ash walked up to Trico and showed it the watermelon and told it that he was going to teach it how to use Bullet Seed, instructing it to eat the watermelons and then spit out the seeds. May questioned Ash on how he had gotten this idea, leading Ash to reveal that he had remembered Shift Tree using a very, very powerful Bullet Seed on Trico, so he wanted Trico to be able to use a Bullet Seed of his own, and this caused Trico to remember being absolutely obliterated by the Shift Tree's Bullet Seed, and he became determined to learn one of his own as well. Before Trico actually tried spitting out the seeds of a watermelon, though, or even got its own watermelon, Ash first demonstrated how it was done, taking bites of a watermelon, spitting out several seeds, rapidly like shooting a gun, absolutely everywhere, cluttering the place up, and he told Trico to try. Trico was then handed its own watermelon by Ash. Trico then takes a few bites of the watermelon and shoots the seeds out of its mouth, but Ash wasn't satisfied, as the seeds didn't go in a straight attack formation, they instead went everywhere, and that's not what he wanted. So Ash demonstrated again, believing that it was his fault, since all the seeds went everywhere before, and this time he didn't spit the seeds everywhere, but in a more concentrated area. So Trico tried again, and it did a little better. Although Ash still wasn't satisfied, as now Trico wasn't spitting the seeds fast enough, because speed was still an instrumental part of a Bullet Seed. So Ash instructed Trico to pick up the pace as he started to spit faster in a demonstration, leading Trico to try again, and it managed to go a lot faster, leading Ash to compliment it on doing a great job, stating that it was doing so great that it should actually try and see if it could emulate spitting out the watermelon seeds by doing the actual Bullet Seed attack. Sure enough, Trico was able to power up the attack as a yellow ball formed in its mouth, ready to break down into the Bullet Seeds, when suddenly, before Trico could actually unleash its Bullet Seed, Ash and the gang and Trico were attacked by an actual Bullet Seed, which causes a bit of smoke to appear from the sheer force of the Bullet Seed hitting Ash and the gang that makes them fall over. When Ash and the gang regain their footing, they then see the source of the Bullet Seed being a Grovyle who angrily approached them. Since Ash had never seen a Grovyle before, he took the opportunity to use his Pokedex on it to learn more about it, learning that it was Trico's evolved form, when suddenly a Slugma accompanied Grovyle, and May used her Pokedex to learn more information about it. Brock then theorized that the reason why the Grovyle and also the Slugma looked angry were because they may have heard Trico practicing the Bullet Seed and may have been disturbed by the noise. This anger was proven right, as the Grovyle then uses another Bullet Seed, which Ash and the gang tried to run from, but then the Slugma comes in front of them and uses a flamethrower, stopping them from going ahead. So they were essentially now trapped. If they continued one way, they'd be hit by the flamethrower, and if they stayed back, they'd be hit by the Bullet Seed. Just then, though, a girl's voice was heard, right as Ash and the gang were wondering how to get out of this fucking situation. And the girl's voice then stops the Grovyle and Slugma from attacking to boot, as she orders them to stop attacking. The girl, with a red and yellow jumpsuit, then comes up, revealing herself as the Grovyle and Slugma's trainer. Ash and the gang tried to thank the lady for her help, but she just accuses Ash and the gang of being thieves, since they apparently took her watermelons without permission, and she explained that the watermelon field where all the watermelons came from was her property, and explains that she had been growing the watermelons all on her own, and then declared that Ash and the gang would pay for stealing her watermelons as she rushed up very close to them and threatened to hit them. Ash and May tried to defend themselves, protesting that they didn't know the watermelons belonged to anyone else, stating that they just found them floating in the river and decided to take them. The girl severely doubted Ash and May's statement, though, as she looked at all the watermelons and were able to tell that they were specifically the ones that she grew, and she figured that there was no way they could have just ended up in the river out of nowhere. And she angrily grabs one of the watermelons and bites into one, and then spits out some of the seeds in their direction to piss them off. And she has her Grovyle do the same, revealing that she had also taught her Grovyle how to use bullet seed by biting into the watermelons and spitting out the seeds. So it seems as though Ash wasn't the first trainer to get this idea, and it proved that biting into the seeds could work. Ash continued to deny stealing the watermelons, leading the girl to warn them that they didn't want to fucking mess with her, as she was the melon master, Natasha, who was in fact in charge of all the nearby watermelon fields. Brock, May, and Ash all tried to plead their innocence, with Brock saying that they didn't want any trouble, and Ash continuing to say that they didn't steal the watermelons, and May corroborating this by reminding Natasha that they just floated by the river, and they were hungry, so they decided to eat them. Natasha was sick of their same excuses over and over, and told them to just shut the fuck up, and demanded that they just confess their thievery, not only to her, but to the actual witness of their thievery, as she motions over to the bushes, and suddenly the watermelon that was actually painted, that was actually just an electrode painted, came out of the bushes and rolled towards her. May was absolutely terrified, mistaking the electrode for an actual giant fruit, just like Team Rocket initially had, but everyone else knew that it was just an electrode, and Max informed May of this, calming her down. However, Ash and the gang all got scared as they saw that the electrode looked mad, leaving Natasha to reveal that the reason why was because Electrode had saw some thieves stealing the watermelons. But when it exploded on them, they blew away, and now it was trying to look for them. And seeing how the Electrode was mad, Natasha came to the conclusion that these had to have been the thieves that Electrode saw, and she told Electrode to hurry up and attack them and finish them off. However, Electrode just stared at Ash and the gang, leading Natasha to get angry, asking her Electrode why it wasn't taking any action against the thieves, clarifying if those even were the thieves in the first place, and Electrode responds by shaking its head, basically revealing that after taking a look at Ash and the gang, Electrode obviously knew that Ash and the gang weren't the thieves that it had saw, as the thieves that it saw were of course Team Rocket. Natasha panics as she realizes her mistake, and apologizes to Ash and the gang, although admits that she was shocked to find out that Ash and the gang weren't the thieves, and states that it was an honest mistake that was kind of warranted, because Ash and the gang looked like thieves, and claimed that they had to have realized this by now. However, she then realized that she was being rude by saying this, and nervously apologized again, starting to berate herself for being so rude, but Ash and the gang calmed her down, and Natasha admits that she had a bad habit of jumping to conclusions, and begs Ash and the gang to forgive her for her rudeness, and Ash and the gang do accept her apology, and admit that they were kind of at fault, since they had enjoyed her watermelons, even though they didn't know that they were hers, and they proceeded to compliment them on being extremely sweet. Natasha becomes excited by this compliment, and asks them if her watermelons were the best ones they've ever tasted, and Ash and the gang confirm this. Ash and the gang then introduce themselves to her, as Natasha, even though she wasn't asked to, explains why her watermelons were the best tasting ones, stating that she's been growing watermelons her whole life, and she knew everything there was to know about them, even the biggest secrets. And she declared that, as thanks for Ash and the gang being so understanding, and forgiving her, that she would give them a tour of her her watermelon fields. Ash was a bit hesitant to go, as was May, as they just wanted to get to Fall Arbor as soon as possible, with Ash wanting to get there so he could just get to Lava Ridge as soon as possible. But before Ash and the gang could decline her offer, Natasha had already began walking forward toward the watermelon field, although she panicked because, for some reason, thought that she forgot to introduce herself, stating that she always forgot to introduce herself, and she reintroduced herself as Natasha, and asked Ash and the gang for their names. Ash and the gang found this funny as fuck, because they'd already said their names, and Natasha had already said hers, but they reintroduced themselves anyways, thinking that Natasha was a bit crazy, perhaps from focusing too much on growing watermelons. However, when Natasha led Ash and the gang to the cliff overlooking her watermelon fields, Ash and the gang saw that her obsession with her watermelons was worth it, as Max and Brock both thought that the garden was very, very good. With Brock also commenting that since the field was so large, it took a lot of responsibility, and admitting that he was impressed, leading Natasha to thank Ash and the gang for their compliments, but also admit that it wasn't just her who took care of the fields, as her Pokémon, particularly her Electrode, helped as well, explaining that she used her Electrode as a disguised watermelon so that it could guard the fields and protect them from thieves by catching them off guard, and said that she used her Slugma and Grovyle to protect the fields as well, but only if the thieves needed to be battled. She then realizes that her Electrode was still up with all of them, so she instructs it to go roll down the hill, back down into the field to protect it again, and it obliges, keeping watch in case any more thieves showed up. As Ash and the gang go through more of the field, May realizes that she never complimented before, and calls it beautiful. Ash and Max then complimented her Grovyle and Slugma, respectively, with Ash commenting that Grovyle's bullet seed attack was really good, and Max complimenting Slugma's Ember. with Ash and Max also adding that Slugma and Grovyle were very strong. Natasha thanks them for their compliments and admits that they had to be strong to protect her watermelons. Natasha then admits that her Grovyle and Slugma were so strong that when they battled together in a double battle, they had never lost one yet. Ash was intrigued by this, wanting to battle Natasha for training now, believing that he could definitely get stronger by facing her, as he convinced her to face him by saying that he was strong too, as he had made it to the top 16 in the Indigo League and the top 8 in the Johto League. Sure enough, when Natasha heard this, she got very excited, and clarified that she would fight Ash in a battle, so long as it could be a double battle, and she could use her Grovyle and Slugma, which Ash agreed to, making Natasha very excited, believing that she had this in the bag. Ash was excited as well, though, believing that he had this in the bag. So, Natasha then showed Ash and the gang that there was actually a battlefield in the middle of the watermelon field, in case she ever needed to battle the thieves, and she then sent out her Grovyle and Slugma, and stood with them on one side of the battlefield, as Ash stood on the other, with Brock requesting to be the ref of the battle, with everyone agreeing to this. And then Natasha showed May and Max a bench that they could sit on while they watched the battle, and they did. May then asked Max what Pokemon he thought Ash would use, leading Max to state that Ash would probably use Pokemon that had the type advantage. Although, much to May's surprise, Ash threw 2 Pokeballs containing Trico and Corphish. Brock officially declared that the match would begin as soon as both trainers gave the okay that they were ready, and since both trainers had sent their Pokemon out, Ash and Natasha both said they were ready, and the battle officially began. May then asked Brock and Max why Ash would send out Trico against Grovyle, when Grovyle was basically the stronger form of Trico, being its evolved form. And also questioned why Ash would send out Trico when the other Mon he had to face was Slugma, who Trico was weak against type-wise. Max just ignored May, at least complimenting Ash on sending out Corphish, since Slugma was weak to water bonds. But Brock answers May's question, stating his belief that Ash probably wanted Trico to battle, so that Trico could see how Grovyle used its own Bullet Seed, and so that Trico could gain some advanced training against a Pokemon that was stronger than it, as the entire purpose of this battle for Ash was training. And also reminded May that just because a Pokemon was evolved doesn't mean it was stronger than its pre-evolved form. After Max had gotten over his happiness over Ash choosing Corphish, he began to realize that May was right to be concerned about Trico versus Grovyle, though Brock assured him that Ash had succeeded in a lot more unlikely situations in the past, referencing his journeys with him through Kanto and Johto. So Brock just told May and Max to observe, and they did, with the battle beginning with Ash having Trico use Pound, and Corphish use Bubble Beam on Slugma, with the Pound going to Grovyle. Both the Bubble Beam and Pound were about to hit Grovyle and Slugma, but then Natasha told Grovyle to dodge the Pound and then jump in front of Slugma and block the Bubble Beam with a Bullet Seed, since Grass-type moves were good against water moves, and Grovyle obliged, cancelling out the Bubble Beam and dodging the Pound. Seeing this, Max panics, complaining how, even though Corphish had a type advantage on Slugma, Grovyle had a type advantage on Corphish. Natasha then orders Grovyle to release a Bullet Seed straight towards Trico, and Slugma to use Flamethrower on Corphish, which Ash countered by having Corphish use Harden to protect itself, and he had Trico hide behind Corphish so that Corphish could simply just take the brunt of both attacks while protected. Sure enough, the attacks both hit Corphish, and it was barely even damaged, leading Natasha to compliment Ash's strategy and happily say that she was having a great time. Ash then has Trico use Quick Attack on Grovyle, and has Corphish use Crab Hammer on Slugma, although Natasha had Grovyle dodge Trico's Quick Attack before it could hit, and jump in front of Corphish and attack it with a Leaf Blade to severely injure Corphish before it could get the Crab Hammer off, therefore protecting Slugma. Natasha then orders Slugma to go in for another Flamethrower, and Grovyle to go in for another Bullet Seed, as quick as they could, but Ash was quick too, as he commanded Corphish to use Harden to protect itself, and had Trico go behind Corphish again. This is basically just the same strategy as last time. Although this strategy did work, again, with Corphish managing to take the attacks like a champ, Corphish was really tired out by this point, and it seemed like it was about to become unable to battle. So, a concerned Ash asked Corphish if it was alright, and although Corphish didn't really want to battle that much, it was determined to win, and said that it was fine enough, and could still battle. Ash was glad, thanking Corphish for persevering, though warned it of Natasha's strength, stating that he may have underestimated her a little bit, as he now saw why Natasha had never lost a double battle before. Grovyle and Slugma were fucking menaces. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were exhausted from their blast-off and the walking back that they had to do, but they had made it back to the watermelon field, wanting to steal the watermelon still. Although, much to their dismay, they saw that Electrode was still guarding the watermelons, staring at them to make sure they didn't steal anything. So, Team Rocket simply stared back, trying to come up with a plan to get past Electrode. Although Jesse and James couldn't think of anything, so they soon just suggested to Meowth that they just give up and not steal any of the watermelons, because they wouldn't be able to get past Electrode. But Meowth adamantly refused to give up, as he tried to intimidate the Electrode and convince them that they were just wanting to take a few watermelons, although the Electrode didn't budge. Meowth remained determined, though, having a boss fantasy about how grateful Giovanni would be to get some of the watermelons, suggesting that Team Rocket should give some of the watermelons to him. And Jesse and James soon had the same fantasy, as they all imagined the three of them bringing some watermelons to Giovanni after stealing them, and Giovanni then going on an expedition in the desert, trying to set up a new base for Team Rocket, and using the watermelons to both eat, with Meowth imagining that he would have a near endless supply to eat, and he also imagined Giovanni then using the watermelons on his expedition to spit out the watermelon seeds to make an R in the sand in the desert to mark the spot for the new base. Meowth's boss fantasy then ended, and Jesse and James came back to the real world as well, and Meowth declared that they should not only steal the watermelons for that reason, but also because, since Giovanni would like the watermelon so much, he would probably give Team Rocket a promotion. And upon hearing this, Team Rocket cheered, excited for the promotions, making Electrode stare at them in confusion, wondering what they were about to do, as he prepared to fight against them, though he didn't know what to do if he didn't know what Team Rocket was planning. And therefore, Electrode got kind of nervous. Anyways, back on the battlefield, the battle was still underway, with Ash ordering Trico to use Pound and Corphish to use Bubble Beam, but Grovyle once again dodged the Pound and intercepted the Bubble Beam that was heading for Slugma by attacking Corphish with a Leaf Blade, hurting the already weakened Corphish even more. Seeing how Corphish was really weak, Natasha ordered Grovyle and Slugma to focus all their attacks on Corphish. So, Grovyle and Slugma used a Bullet Seed and Body Slam, respectively, heading straight for Corphish, although Ash still told Trico to hide behind Corphish, just in case. Corphish then used Harden to protect itself, as usual, but Slugma was too fast this time, since Corphish was tired out, so it took it longer to get its Harden up. So before Corphish could even get its Harden up at all, Slugma managed to smother Corphish using its Body Slam, which therefore meant that Trico was no longer being protected by Corphish, so it left Trico vulnerable to a Bullet Seed from Grovyle, with Grovyle administering the Bullet Seed from the air to give it more force. Ash and the gang were very shocked to see Ash's strategy fail, and began to get worried as Trico was launched backwards, being hit very hard by the Bullet Seed. Ash asked Trico if it could still keep going, and even though Trico was exhausted, it barely managed to stand up. Corphish was equally exhausted, barely being able to stand itself after the Body Slam. Seeing how both Corphish and Trico were immensely injured, Grovyle and Slugma angrily glared at Corphish and Trico, wishing that they would just fucking pass out already. As for May, Max, and Pikachu's reaction to Corphish and Trico's status, they were all immensely worried that Natasha's Pokemon truly were better, commenting how strong they were, and also commenting how great of a team Grovyle and Slugma made. Ash got mad at his friends not supporting him, and told both them and Natasha that he would prove that Trico and Corphish had better teamwork, stating that he had the perfect strategy, which he then implemented as he had Trico grab a hold of Corphish's right claw, and this allowed Corphish to use Crab Hammer to launch Trico forward. Once Trico was off its claw, Corphish used the Crab Hammer on Slugma, and Natasha was shocked to see Trico launch forward to attack Grovyle with an even more sped up quick attack due to the momentum it gained from being thrown off the claw. As Grovyle and Slugma fell back from these attacks, Natasha still remained confident, even though May and Max thought Ash could potentially win now, as Natasha warned that her Pokemon weren't finished yet. Then Natasha told Grovyle to use Solar Beam this time, much to Ash's surprise, as he didn't think Grovyle had that attack, and Grovyle began to take in sunlight. Knowing that it would take Grovyle a little bit to gather up the sunlight, Ash told Corphish and Trico to do the same strategy that they had done many times before, hoping it would work this time, as Corphish used Harden to protect itself, and Trico hid behind Corphish. Grovyle then launched the Solar Beam, though thankfully the Harden and hide behind strategy actually worked this time, although Corphish was now more exhausted than ever, just barely managing to stop the Solar Beam, surprising everyone, as even Ash had his doubts that Corphish would be able to take that attack. Natasha then had Slugma use Flamethrower, but Corphish used Bubble Beam to collide with the Flamethrower, and form a steamy mist, which had the remnants of both the Flamethrower and the Bubble, and this mist collides with both Corphish and Slugma, knocking them both out, which Brock officially declared, meaning that Grovyle and Trico were the only ones left to battle, making May terrified, as she believed that there was no way Trico could beat Grovyle on its own. Ash and Natasha then recalled Corphish and Slugma, respectively, and prepared to continue the battle. But just then, Electrode rolled over to Natasha, and based on Electrode's rapid movements, Natasha was able to decipher what it was trying to warn her about, informing Ash and the gang that Electrode had come to warn them that there was trouble at the watermelon field. Specifically, the thieves from earlier had returned and were trying to steal the watermelons again. Both Natasha and her Grovyle were immensely shocked and concerned by this, so Natasha knew that she had to take action and stop the thieves, so she told Ash that the battle would have to be postponed, since dealing with the thieves was priority number one, though clarified they could battle again later, as she rushed off into the field. Ash wanted to help out, so he told his friends to come with him, and they all followed after Natasha and her Electrode. We then see the thieves, of course being Team Rocket, as they were now in a giant Cacnea mech, stealing all the watermelons, scooping up the watermelons with the Cacnea mech's gigantic hands, and then placing them in a gigantic basket on the Cacnea mech's back. Soon enough, Ash and the gang arrived at the field, along with Natasha and her Grovyle and Electrode, and saw this huge mech, as Team Rocket came out of the mech and got on its head and said their motto, leading May to ask what the fuck they wanted this time, leading Team Rocket to finish their motto and clarify their plan to use the Cacnea mech to steal the entire field of watermelons, with Jessie bragging that she came up with the idea to build a Cacnea mech, and how it was all her idea, and she then orders James and Meowth to show off the Cacnea mech's capabilities by showcasing its ability to both steal watermelons and attack. So, James and Meowth pulled a lever together, and this caused the mech to grab several watermelons out of its bag and stuff them in its mouth, and it soon chewed them up and spat all the seeds at Ash and the gang and Natasha, basically doing a fake bullet seed. So, Ash and the gang blocked themselves with their hands, although they were still being pelted, so Natasha told Grovyle to use a real bullet seed on the mech. Before Grovyle actually launched the attack, though, Ash advised Trico to watch, stating that it could learn how to fully use bullet seed by observing Grovyle, and added that if Trico did happen to learn bullet seed after watching, it should jump in and use it as well. So when Grovyle launched its Bullet Seed straight at Team Rocket's Cacnea mech and damaged it a little bit, Trico just watched as it hadn't learned it yet. Anyways, as Grovyle's Bullet Seed continued to damage the Cacnea mech, literally causing it to shake, Meowth declared that they had to do something, and decided to show off yet another one of the mech's abilities, stating that it was time to test out their Shut-the-Mouth bazooka. And just then, Meowth pulled a lever, and this caused the Cacnea mech to pull out a large bazooka and hoist it over its shoulder, firing a big block of tape shaped like an X straight at Grovyle's mouth, clamping it shut, stopping it from using Bullet Seed. With Grovyle now stopped, thanks to the huge bazooka, Team Rocket continued to use the Cacnea mech to dig up the watermelons, also pulling out a lever that made the Cacnea mech deploy a net, which it used to make the collecting process of the watermelons easier. As Team Rocket happily cheered, claiming that nothing could stop them now, Ash knew that Trico would have to take action, and he told it to use Bullet Seed, even if it wasn't ready yet. Trico tried its best, as it nodded and charged up a Bullet Seed, but it couldn't get the attack off, as no seeds came out. However, when Ash encouraged Trico to try as hard as it could, a bit of seeds started to come out. So Ash continued to encourage Trico as much as he could, thinking that that gave Trico the courage to keep trying. And he also gave Trico some advice to focus on specifically shooting out seeds. And sure enough, on its next try, it was able to actually unleash a Bullet Seed, which hit the rope of the basket on the back of the Cacnea mech, therefore causing the basket to fall and be destroyed, also releasing all of the watermelons in the process. Although Natasha panicked, as she obviously didn't want the watermelons to crash into the ground. She needed them to be caught, because otherwise they would all fucking explode, and they would all be unedible. So Natasha frantically instructs everyone to catch all of the watermelons by standing in front of them as they fell, and miraculously, Ash and the gang and Natasha all managed to catch all of the watermelons, stopping them from being destroyed. Despite how last minute and unorganized the catching was. With all of the watermelons now safe, there was nothing stopping Pikachu from simply destroying the Cacnea mech with a Thunderbolt, destroying it, and sending Team Rocket blasting off. So, this allowed Ash and the gang and Natasha to return to the battlefield, so Ash and Natasha could resume their battle. So, Brock officially declared that the battle between Grovyle and Trico could resume, as Ash, thinking that Trico could now use Bullet Seed whenever it wanted, having mastered it, ordered Trico to use Bullet Seed, but unfortunately, Trico failed, insinuating that it hadn't mastered the attack yet, making May and Max worried, as barely any Bullet Seeds came out from Trico. And with Trico caught off guard by this allowed Grovyle to go in for a Leaf Blade, but thankfully, Trico was able to dodge this and got off a Pound attack, damaging Grovyle a little bit. Grovyle then went in for a Bullet Seed of its own, but Trico simply dodged by speeding away with Quick Attack, swerving in other directions, and then turned this Quick Attack into an actual attack, hitting Grovyle so hard it knocked it to the ground. With Grovyle now in immense pain, especially in its stomach, where the attack hit. Grovyle seemed very tired now, as if it almost couldn't get up, but when Natasha begged Grovyle to get up, Grovyle managed to struggle its way to its feet. Trico was tired as well, panting heavily, with Ash noting that this battle was almost over, since both Trico and Grovyle were almost out of energy. Natasha was getting worried, not knowing what to do, as Grovyle was panting heavily, and she soon came up with the idea for Grovyle to simply just end the battle immediately before it used up any more energy by using a Solar Beam, but she saw that her Grovyle didn't even have enough energy left to use the Solar Beam, and also realized that, while Grovyle was charging up its Solar Beam, Trico could attack it, since Grovyle had no one to protect it. So she decided to kibosh the Solar Beam plan, and instead had Grovyle use Bullet Seed, and Ash told Trico to use Bullet Seed as well, hoping that it would actually be able to hit this time. Much to Ash's delight, Trico was actually able to get off the Bullet Seed again, and therefore, Grovyle and Trico's Bullet Seeds collided, meaning that neither Pokemon was getting hit. But since Grovyle's Bullet Seed was obviously a lot stronger, since Grovyle had mastered the attack, while Trico hadn't, Trico's Bullet Seed was overpowered by Grovyle's, and soon, Trico's Bullet Seed completely stopped, since Trico had run out of seeds, and therefore, Trico was knocked out by Grovyle's Bullet Seed. And although Trico tried to get back up, it couldn't, giving Grovyle and Natasha the win, which Brock officially declared. Looking at Trico's knocked out body that had flown back from the Bullet Seed, Natasha was very happy to have won, as she hugged her Grovyle, and Grovyle actually appeared annoyed at this, as it was almost getting strangled from its trainer's affection. Ash then went up to Trico and pulled it in its arms to make sure it was okay, and Trico became conscious again and nodded. Later that evening, after Natasha had finished hugging her Grovyle, and Ash had congratulated Trico on doing its best, Natasha took Ash and the gang to her cabin, and they all had some watermelon for dinner, because Natasha felt as though she should treat everyone, once again, as an apology for thinking that Ash and the gang were thieves before, and also to congratulate Ash on doing such a good job against her. As Ash and the gang ate the watermelon, they complimented Natasha for growing such tasty watermelons, with everyone enjoying at least 3 slices of watermelon to themselves, while Natasha prepared even more watermelons for Ash and the gang to eat by washing them off in her well by her cabin, while Brock complimented Natasha's watermelons, saying that she grew great crops. Natasha thanked Brock for the compliment, and Brock embarrassingly laughed, because he had actually developed a crush on Natasha, but hey, at least he technically wasn't flirting with her. Maybe he was finally developing restraint after over like 300 episodes. However, Ash noticed that Trico wasn't participating in this watermelon feast, noting that it was sitting by itself, staring at the sunset, clearly annoyed and disappointed with its loss. So, Ash and Pikachu tried to go up to it and comfort it by offering it a nice tasty piece of watermelon, well, 2 pieces of watermelon, because Ash offered one and Pikachu offered one, and Ash also assured Trico that even if it was mad that its Bullet Seed failed today, Ash would be sure to help Trico train to make sure it could eventually master its Bullet Seed technique, stating that even if it took some time, knowing that it will, Trico would eventually master the Bullet Seed. He was sure of it. Trico then got mad, thinking that Ash was full of shit, just trying to cheer Trico up for no reason, and he basically thought that Ash didn't actually believe that he could master the Bullet Seed, leading Ash to tell Trico to stop being such a whiny bitch and stop being a poor sport, but basically just get over your loss already. And he and Pikachu then ate the watermelon slices that they were going to give to Trico and spat the seeds at the back of its head and laughed as Trico got extremely angry at this. It got so angry that it released the Bullet Seed right at their faces, knocking Ash and Pikachu back. This was just as Ash had wanted, though, as him and Pikachu firing seeds from the watermelon at Trico had aggravated it so much that it was able to focus its anger and use a Bullet Seed, leading Brock, May, and Max to compliment Trico on finally mastering the Bullet Seed, with Brock commenting that all Trico needed was the right motivation, being Ash's fake rudeness. May was delighted to see that Trico had finally knocked some sense into Ash, leading Ash to clarify that he wasn't actually being rude to Trico, it was just a joke so that he could get Trico to unleash its inner strength, to unleash the Bullet Seed. Although Ash did complain about the fact that him being rude to Trico was necessary, because he would prefer not to get hurt while training his Pokemon, leading May to comment that what Trico had learned, being how to use the Bullet Seed, was important, not who it hit with the Bullet Seed. Ash realized that May was right, and it didn't really matter that he got hurt. What mattered was that Trico had grown stronger, and Ash apologized to Trico for making it angry, but congratulated it on learning this new attack. Although he joked with Trico, pleading with him not to use Bullet Seed on him anymore, only his opponents, as Ash held his head in pain. As for Trico, it was very shocked that it actually managed to use Bullet Seed, but it smiled, very happy with itself, and the episode then ends with Ash and the gang saying goodbye to Natasha and setting off once again to Fall Arbor Town.